I started feeling his movement at about 15 weeks. To me, it felt like little bubbles, like if there was a fish inside my stomach that was blowing bubbles. That's what it felt like to me. Where am I? Oh, I didn't start showing till it was around 15, 16, 17 weeks that I started showing. Yeah, around 30 weeks, I noticed that his movement dropped off a bit. Like, he used to always start moving when I lay down to go to bed at night. Like, always, like clockwork. I would, go to bed and then I would wait for him to move, to kick, and then I'd be able to go to sleep. So that stopped. Oh, it didn't stop altogether, but it stopped happening every single night. I spoke to my midwife and my GP about it, and they both just said, like, he's just getting big, you might not have a lot of room left in there, or the placenta might be at the front, so you can't, feel his kicks through it. Then at around 33 weeks, like, I called my midwife because, I said, like, his movements have really dropped off. Like, I'm hardly ever feeling him. I definitely was not feeling him the 10 times a day that they say you're supposed to be able to feel. So I went in and she monitored me, and his heartbeat and his movements, everything was fine. So, like, he was kicking while we were there, and she's like, you didn't feel that? And I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, okay. I reckon your placenta's probably blocking you from feeling them. And I was like, alright. So I went away feeling better, but I don't know, I knew something wasn't right. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew, deep down, I knew that it wasn't right. Like, we'd be at our antenatal classes, and there was this one woman, and she'd always be sitting, like, in front of us, off to the side a little bit, and she was big, like, she was really big. She was having a girl, and I'd always notice her sitting there, and she'd be shifting around, and she'd be so uncomfortable and feeling her belly, feeling her little girl kick, and I'd just always be thinking, why isn't that me? Why can't I feel my son? Like, what is going on? Why don't I have a big belly like that? Because I didn't get very big. I only put on 4 kilos. Yeah. So that was at week 33. Then when I was 34 weeks, I was about 34 weeks and 1 or 2 days. And I had a day where I felt absolutely no movement. None at all. And even though the movement up till then had been reduced, I'd still been able to feel at least a few a day. So the next day I called my midwife. I didn't call that day because, I don't know, I felt like I was overreacting and being a nuisance and, like, first time mum, blah blah blah, you overanalyze everything and, you just get freaked out at nothing. And I just didn't want her to sort of look at me and be like, oh God, like, just shut up, everything is fine. So I called her the next day. She said, yep, come in, I wanted to check you out just to be sure. And, so his heartbeat was fine, but he did not move. Not one time, he didn't move. And she monitored me for about an hour, and then she basically said, like, look, he's not moving, but his heartbeat is okay, so I'm just going to go have a word to an associate and see what she says. And I was like, alright. So when she came back, she said, look, I can't comfortably send you home knowing that he's not moving. So this check, I'd been having my checks at a different hospital to the one that I was going to give birth in. Because the one I was having my checks at was what was closest, but they didn't have a, you know, like maternity ward at the time. I think they do now, but they didn't at the time. So I had to go to the bigger hospital that's in the city, the Women's and Children's Hospital, and I was monitored there again, and same deal, good heartbeat, but not moving at all. And so they put me into a private room, and they got an ultrasound lady in and one of the little portable ultrasound machines, and she had a look, and I had a third ultrasound at week 30. Actually, I forgot this. Okay, I'll go backtrack. At my 19-week at my 19-week ultrasound, they noticed that the placenta was I think it was 2.5 centimeters from the cervix or something. So basically, if it didn't move, I would have needed a cesarean C-section. So they said, you know, come back at 30 weeks and we'll check it again, see if it's moved. So at the 30-week ultrasound, it had moved, it was fine, out of the way, but they noticed that the fluid was down and his growth was about a week behind. So when I was actually at the hospital at 34 weeks, when I had no movement, the ultrasound that they did in the private room, she said that I think he was about 1 or 2 weeks behind in growth, and there was almost no fluid around him. And she said that also might be a reason why I couldn't feel him moving. But while she was doing the ultrasound, his heartbeat was fine. He didn't move at all, but he was doing practice breathing movements. So she said that if he had to be born now, he'd at least be able to breathe on his own. And she basically said to me, look, if he doesn't pick up in the next half an hour, we're going to go in and get him out. And I was just like, what? Like today? And she was like, yep, this afternoon. And oh my god, I just looked at Christian and I was just like, what the hell? Like, what is going on, you know? I mean, I had felt that something wasn't right, but geez, I didn't think, you know, I'd be having a preemie like 6 weeks early. That was a real shock. So, where are we at? Yeah, basically from the first check at the first hospital until he was born in the second hospital was about 3 hours. So, that pretty much says right there, you know, something's wrong, but it didn't click. Like, I was just thinking, like, yeah, he's going to be born a little early, he's going to be a little bit small, but he'll be fine, like, you know, he'll come home, like, it'll be all good. Really naive to think that, but, you know, obviously the ultrasound couldn't see what was wrong with him, and so nobody had any idea what was going on, so we really had no reason to suspect something really, really wrong was going on. So yeah, I had to have an emergency C-section, and Kaiden was born July 4, 2007 at 4:21 p.m. and he weighed 3 pounds 14 ounces, which is 1.76 kilos, and he was 42 centimeters long, which I think is 16.5 inches. Yeah, epidural didn't hurt at all. That was absolutely fine for me, but I mean, I've got a high pain threshold. That was really weird, the epidural. Like, my legs went numb straight away. It worked really well for me. There was no problems. Everything was numb. Like basically, you know, from the time I bent over and they put it in to the time I sat up straight and then went to turn around and put my legs back up on the bed, they were already jelly and I couldn't feel it. I'm like laughing. I'm like, I can't move my legs. And they're like, yeah, that's good. It means it's working. And so, yeah, I had to lay down, and I had Chris on my left, and on my right I had my midwife, and both of them were holding your hand. and the epidural made me shake like crazy. Like I couldn't stop it. I was uncontrollable, just shaking, because apparently the epidural